So this morning I want to go over the Constantine Creed again. This time I'm going to compare it with the words of Paul. Okay? Now, the words of Paul. I want you to listen carefully. And as I have pointed out, they have replaced everything Hebrew, everything Jewish, the Gentiles did, including King James Version, with all things Roman. So they replaced the name Jehovah with God or with Deus. But it's still Jehovah. I say then, has Jehovah cast away his people? The word is no, not lest, or may in Greek is not lest. Okay? For I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. He has not cast away, he has not cast away his people which he foreknew. Don't you know what the scripture said about Eliah? How he made intercession to Jehovah against Israel, saying, Adonai, they have killed your prophets and digged down your altars and left me alone, and they seek my life. But what was the answer from Jehovah unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. Even so, at this time, this present time, there is still a remnant according to the election of grace. Okay? At that particular time, at that present time. But what's going to happen is that particular time is going to be changed. Paul talked about this in this very chapter. I want you to remember this present time. That the remnant according to the election of grace. So what then? Israel has not obtained which it seeks, but the election has obtained it. At those days, the election of grace. The election of grace is the only way that the Gentile could be grafted into the branches of Israel. And the rest were blinded. And if you look at the thumbnail of my previous video, you will see ecclesia. On the left, you will see synagogue on the right, and you will see they have synagogue blindfolded. But unfortunately, ecclesia has a crown on her head and a golden cup in her hand, the image of damnation in Revelation 18. Ecclesia is the church. So at that particular time, the rest were blinded. At that time, I want you never to forget. And even David said, let their table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. Let their eyes be darkened that they may see and bow down their back. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Not God forbid. No. But rather through their misstep or false step, salvation is come to the Gentiles. If Israel would not have had a false step, there would have been no salvation for the Gentiles. So you Gentiles should be grateful. You should be grateful, and you should take pity upon the Jews and bless them in your heart, bless them with your mouth, for to provoke them to jealousy. Now, if the misstep, the trespass of them is the riches of the world, meaning the current Gentile Roman world, and the diminishing of them be the riches of the Gentiles, as the picture of synagogue and ecclesia shows, how much more shall their fullness be? What do you mean, how much more shall their fullness be? At a different time. So there is a present time, which was in the days of Paul until now, and in the future is going to be their fullness. Okay? How much more their fullness? Listen, I'm speaking to you Gentiles because I am the apostle of the Gentiles. Now, if you don't listen to the words of Paul, you're finished, Gentile. You're done. It's over for you. If you reject the words of Paul in this chapter. I magnify my office if by any means I may provoke men of my flesh to jealousy, to provoke to emulation them which are of my flesh, and might save some of them. I'm sorry. If by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are of my flesh, and might save some of them. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, the Gentile world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? But see, that's not what Constantinism was about. Because if the first fruit is holy, then the lump is holy. What is the first fruit? The first fruit is the Moshiach, the Messiah. The lump is all 12 tribes of Israel. If the root of Jesse, is holy, then so are all 12 branches. So we look at the Constantine Creed and we see it reads, and I quote, let me say at the outset, I completely, 100% oppose everything that is in the Constantine Creed. But the Constantine Creed, this is what all Christians agree to, swear to. Renounce all customs, rites, legalisms, unleavened breads, and sacrifice of lambs of the Hebrews, and all the other feasts of the Hebrews, sacrifices, prayers, and aspirations, and purifications, sanctifications, appropriations, fasts, and new moons, Shabbat, superstition, and hymns, and chants, and observances, and synagogues. Well, didn't the 12 apostles go to synagogues? As you Gentiles like to call them. That's not what the Jews, the Hebrews, call them. That is a word that you made up, Gentile. Absolutely. Okay, what does the word absolutely mean to you? Let's look it up. With no qualification, no restriction, no limitation, totally. And that's what's going to get you in trouble, you Gentiles. Hear me out. Absolutely everything Jewish. Every law, including you shall love Jehovah Elohim with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all your mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That is the law. Every law, rite, and custom. And custom. All right? I got one for you. The Jews have a custom. This, a kittel, is a white linen or cotton robe worn by some religious Ashkenazi Jews on holidays in the synagogue or at home. Listen to me carefully. When leading the Passover Seder, kittels are sometimes worn by grooms. It is customary for Jews to be buried in a kittel. All right? In Ashkenazi tradition, married men wear a kittel in the synagogue on Yom Kippur. In the less traditional synagogues, religious Jews, both men and women, wear a kittel. Some wear a kittel while leading the Passover Seder. But it is, in some communities, a bridegroom wears a kittel on his wedding day. Okay? And it is a wedding garment. The white color is said to symbolize purity, which partly explains its use during weddings. It is also felt to signify unity with the bride, who also wears white. Okay? Another reason it is worn at the wedding is so that because no pockets, showing that the couple is married for love, not for what they possess. Now, this is very, very, very important to understand. All you got to do is Google no wedding garment. Mattitiyahu 22:12. Oh, hold on. (22:12). So you're going to reject every custom of the Jews. All right. Let me show you what happens when you reject this custom. That's not the one I'm looking for. I must have read it wrong. Oh shoot, that's... I tell you what I'll do, wedding garment. I'll just do it this way. Please be patient with me. Okay. Verse 12. We'll start with verse 11. And when the king came to see the guests, he saw there was a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he said unto them, Friend, how did you come in here not having a wedding garment? What was this wedding garment that he was supposed to have on? It was this, a kittel. Now, Let's see what happens to him. Now, you're going to say, you can't prove that. Well, I'm going to prove that to you in just a minute. He was speechless, and then the king said to his servants, bind him up hand and foot, take him away and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. I say again, a kittel, a white robe. We're going to now go to Revelation, I believe it's 7. So you have 144,000 of Israel. Now, if you reject everything Jewish, then you reject this. You reject this. And you also reject this. And after this, behold, I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, that were gathered out of all the nations, kindreds, tongues, and peoples, and stood before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed with white robes. They were clothed in kittles. So that's both of these things you reject, but if you reject it, you are going to be, if you show up without a kittel, a wedding garment. A wedding garment, then you will be cast out if without a Jewish wedding garment. We're right here. How is it you came in here not having a wedding garment? And another thing that really gets me is how you especially hate Ashkenazi Jews when they are the ones who have this custom. You call them, what do you Gentiles call them? Khazars, that's what you call them? Well, the whole 144,000 and then the whole innumerable multitude are all going to be wearing a kittel. On that day. Now, we will continue. Everything Jewish, huh? Absolutely everything Jewish, every law, every rite and custom, and if afterwards I wish to deny and return to Jewish super system. So you making it so, when you swear to this Constantine Creed so you can be a Christian, you make absolutely sure that damnation falls upon you if you should see the error of your way. How can there be any righteousness in this horrifically evil creed? Or shall be found eating with Jews. You curse yourself if you even accidentally to be found eating with Jews. If you don't reject this Constantine Creed If you're a Christian and you don't reject this Constantine Creed, that actually what makes you a Christian, and you have, even by accident, eaten with a Jew, and I have eaten with many Jews, by the way, then this Constantine Creed condemns you too. The trembling of Cain, the leprosy of Gehazi, and to make yourself anathema in the world to come, and that your soul be set down with Satan and the devils. Have you eaten with a Jew? If you are a Christian and if you have eaten with a Jew, you must now condemn the Constantine Creed, reject it outright as a lie, as a curse, and leave it forever and come to Yehoshua. Otherwise, you are now under its own curse. It's exactly, you curse yourself if you don't do it. If you remain a Christian and you have eaten with a Jew, you must wash your hands and your whole self from Christianity as a whole, as a part. Leave that and become converted to Yehoshua. Now the Council of Nicaea is setting forth a brand new holy day, one that the followers of Yehoshua, the followers of Paul, the followers of the disciples, did not keep Easter. Now, what I want to do is continue with Romans 11. He says in verse 18, do not boast against the branches. What does the Constantine Creed do? It boasts against the branches, but it goes even further. It curses those who eat with the Jews. It says right here, because if you boast, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. The root being the Messiah, the Moshiach. He bears you. You will say that the branches are broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off, and you now stand by faith. Do not be high-minded, but fear. But you didn't obey the words of Paul. You became high-minded, and you were fearless. Because if not God, but Jehovah did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. Look at the excellence and severity of Jehovah on them which fell severity, but towards you goodness, grace, excellence, uprightness, if you continue in the grace, excellence, and uprightness, and if you don't continue in it, and the Constantine Creed proves that Constantinism, Christianity, rejected all of that. Now they are going to be also cut off. And they, the Jews, does not say if they abide. It says before they abide. No longer in unbelief. In other words, they're going to be saved and grafted in, and then they shall believe, just exactly as it says in Ezekiel 39, and I believe it's, I have to go there. Ezekiel 39. Ezekiel 39 specifically says that Israel is going to be saved first, and then they shall believe. And Paul accentuates that. Yes, it is in verse 22. Now I got it memorized. And I will set my glory among the Gentiles, and all the Gentiles shall see my judgment that I have executed, and my hand that I laid upon them, so that the house of Israel shall know Jehovah Elohim from when? It says from that day and forward. So they have to be saved first. And the salvation that Israel is going to receive is Ezekiel 38-39 war salvation. And then they shall believe. So they're going to be saved first, and then they shall believe. And I don't care what you Constantine Christians say. Your words mean absolutely nothing to me, because you rejected the words of Paul in Romans 11. They will be grafted in, for Jehovah is able. He's strong, mighty, and powerful to graft them in again. And he's going to do it with strong and mighty power. You're going to see it very soon. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a domestic olive tree, then how much more shall these, which are the natural branches, be grafted on their own olive tree? But you rejected that too. And furthermore, right here, if some of the branches are broken off, and you being a wild olive, you were grafted in to replace them? Is that what he says? Does he say to replace them? No. It says to be grafted in among them or with them. To be grafted in, on, among them. You become one of them. You become a Jew by grafting, not by replacing. Who is the grafter? The grafter is Yehoshua. He takes you, the Gentile, like, for instance, Yehoshua, the first Yehoshua, did with Rahab in Jericho. She was a Gentile prostitute, but because, like Irene Gut Updike, was a harlot and saved the Israelites' scouts from certain death, so did Irene Gut Updike save Jews from certain death. Rahab became grafted into one of the branches of Israel, and she became one of them. She became a Jew of the house of Yehuda. That's how, that is the only way a Gentile can be saved. That's why Jesus can't save you. Because the doctrine of Jesus does not agree with the doctrine of Yehoshua, as we plainly read here in Romans 11. So you were grafted in among them and with them, partaking jointly. Do you see that? partaking jointly with them, eating and drinking with them. But you have, with the Constantine Creed, rejected the whole template by which a Gentile can be saved. You rejected that. You say this, or shall be found eating or feasting with the Jews, that a curse will fall upon you. That's what you say. That's what you did. You rejected the words of Paul with a curse. Paul said, partaking jointly with, co-partnering with the natural branches. There's it. Grafted in among them, and with them, partaking jointly with them of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. You rejected that. You see, because Yehoshua is going to come and save them. Proof? Right here. Verse 25, for I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that partial blindness happened to Israel until the filling up, the hourglass fills up for the Gentiles. And so all Israel shall be saved. Because it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, who will turn away unrighteousness from Jacob. Who is that deliverer? His name is Yehoshua, not Jesus. But see, you rejected Yehoshua and you embraced Jesus. You rejected partaking jointly with Israel, and you embraced the Constantine Creed. The Constantine Creed of cursing. And because of that, you Christians are going to be cursed. Now, concerning this brand new holy day of Easter, concerning this Council of Nicaea, creed to which all Christians must swear to. That means every one of you who calls yourself a Christian by default have sworn to this Council of Nicaea creed to accept all customs, rites, legalisms, feasts of the Roman, sacrifices, prayers, purifications, water sanctifications by Pontifex Maximus, the high priest of Rome. The appropriations and the feasts of the new Sabbath, as they say, the day of the sun, to honor the sun idol, and all new chants and observance and all the foods and drinks of the Romans. Let's see what Paul said about this. Two devils. So if you're going to reject everything Jewish, you're going to reject everything that Paul said in Romans 11, that means what Paul in 1 Corinthians 10 verse 20 is about you. Let's start in verse 14. My beloved, and he's talking to Gentiles, flee from idolatry. You're wise men, you know what I'm saying. The cup of blessing which we bless, it is the communion and the blood of not Christos. Christos was a word first used for Sibyl, the goddess of the transvestite cult. How dare you choose a name for her and apply it to a man-child, now the Savior of all Israel. The King of Israel now. How dare you? The bread of which we break, is it not communion of the body of Moshiach? For we being many are one bread, one flesh, we are all partakers of that one bread. Israel after the flesh, they eat of the sacrifices containing partakers of the altar. Am I saying that the idol is anything, or that which is offered to the idol is anything? What I'm saying is, the things which the Gentiles sacrifice to, they sacrifice to devils. So all of these things that are written in the Council of Nicaea, all of these customs, rites, legalisms, and the feasts, the Roman sacrifices and prayers and purification, etc., including Sunday, is of the devil. You Christians have made your choice. You chose a curse. I don't curse you. I don't have the authority to do so. You chose the curse, therefore the curse is coming upon you, and it is coming upon you when all Israel is gathered and is grafted back to their land, as promised in the prophets, as Paul said in Romans 11, verse 25 and 26. You Christians are going to fight against that Moshiach, the real one, and you're going to call him the Antichrist. But remember this, it was you who cursed yourself. You did it to yourself. You invited all the curses that Moshe spoke of in Deuteronomy 30. You have invited all these curses upon yourself. It shall come to pass, in verse 1, that all these things come upon you, Israel, that the blessings and the curse which I have set before you, and you shall remember in your heart when you are among the Gentiles, where Jehovah, not the Lord, and Elohim, not God, has driven you. And you shall return to Jehovah Elohim. No ifs, ands, or buts. And you shall obey his voice according to all I have commanded you this day. No ifs, ands, or buts. You and your children with all of your heart and with all of your soul. No ifs, ands, or buts. Because Jehovah Elohim will return your captivity. Exactly the way it says in Ezekiel 39 verse 22. He's going to return their captivity, and then they are going to believe, just like it says here. And he will have compassion upon you, and will return and gather you from all the Gentiles where Jehovah Elohim has scattered you. And if any of yours be driven out in the uttermost parts of the sky, that's how it should read. In other words, on the furthest parts of the horizon, from there will Jehovah Elohim gather you, and he will fetch you, and Jehovah Elohim will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it, and he will do you better than your forefathers. And Jehovah Elohim will circumcise your heart, and there's nothing you Gentiles can do about it. And the heart of your seed, and there's nothing you Gentiles can do to stop it. to love Jehovah Elohim with all of your heart, with all of your soul, that you may live, and Jehovah Elohim will put all these curses, you know, the Constantine curse, upon your enemies, on them that hate you, that persecuted you. So he's going to put these curses upon anyone who has hold of the Christian Constantine Creed, when he gathers up all Israel and brings them back into their land. So to all you Christians out there, prepare yourself for curses, because they're coming, guaranteed.